Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take the sources you send us and, well, we dive deep, pulling out the key ideas.
And today, we've got a really interesting mix for May 7th, 2025. There's an astrological forecast, a TarotScope reading, and a symbolic story, all from Texcalo, specifically Tarot by High C.
Right. And, when we talk about things like astrology and tarot, people come at it from all different places. Some of you listening might know a lot, others maybe not so much.
And that's totally okay.
Yeah, exactly. Our aim isn't really to get into whether these things predict the future or not.
Mm-hmm.
We're more interested in the bigger themes, the patterns that pop up across these different sources. What might they highlight for you, regardless of what you believe about them?
Think of it like finding some different lenses to look through as you navigate the day.
Yeah, perspectives to maybe chew on.
Precisely. We're hunting for those common threads, those ideas that might just, well, resonate on a symbolic level. So let's get into it, starting with the astrology for May 7th, 2025.
Okay, so this forecast kicks off with a line I really liked. Staying grounded doesn't have to be boring.
Hmm.
It cuts right through that idea that being practical is dull, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of links to why you might be tuning in wanting solid insights, but definitely not in a boring way.
Well, and what's interesting is it immediately follows that with encouraging you to trust gut instincts, even if they seem counterintuitive, and also to try new things and break out of old, stuck ruts and habits.
Right, which feels very relevant if you're seeking, new ways of looking at things, moving past the same old stuff.
Exactly, that inherent curiosity.
And then it talks about practical progress coming through patience, persistence, and integrity. That feels very step by step.
Yeah, methodical. Like you want thoroughness, but you don't want to feel completely snowed under a steady approach.
Yeah, steady climb, not a mad dash.
And there's that simple but actually quite important reminder about attending to physical needs being especially comforting.
Oh, totally. Like remembering the basics. That foundation supports everything else we're trying to do, even thinking deeply.
It does. And then there's a nod to flexibility, too, remembering there's not just one way to do things.
And to stay grounded and avoid overly lofty ideas or plans.
It's like, keep it real. Have realistic expectations, be open to different approaches.
Okay, but then the tone shifts a bit. It mentions things like, truths are told, dissent is rampant, debates and controversies are heated.
And people are opinionated, assertive, or reactive. Issues of free speech may arise. Whoa.
Yeah, it paints a picture of potentially quite a bit of external friction, strong opinions flying around.
And it also flags this internal possibility. The mind is focused on what isn't working and may tend to complain or blame.
Right, and it's worth saying, we're just relaying what the source notes here. It's an observation from this particular astrological viewpoint for the day.
Absolutely. Not taking sides, just reporting the observation. But it's useful, potentially, to be aware that your mind might lean that way, that complaining or blaming tendency.
Definitely. Awareness is key. So digging into the specifics. The morning has the Virgo moon square Jupiter. Now, square usually means what? Tension? A challenge.
Yeah, typically. And here it says, growth comes through focusing on the details and refining skills, routines, and acts of service. So you've got that Virgo need for precision.
Butting up against Jupiter's push for expansion, for the
Yeah.
bigger picture. It sounds like a balancing act.
Exactly. Like, refine the details, work on your craft, but don't get so lost in the weeds you miss the growth potential.
Okay. And then the evening.
Evening brings a Virgo moon trine Uranus. Trines are generally more flowing, more harmonious.
Ah, okay.
And this aspect is described as sparking intuition and encouragement to put a unique spin on work and self-care practices.
Ooh, I like that. So blending the practical with a bit of innovation, finding new angles on everyday stuff.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting, that unexpected spark.
Cool. And then tonight.
Tonight, the Virgo moon opposes Saturn. Opposition often highlights a need for balance or integration, and this is about setting healthy boundaries and realistic goals.
That feels like a really grounding end to the day. Bringing in structure, limitations, making sure those innovative sparks are actually doable.
Right, so the astrology paints this picture of needing practicality, but also being open to intuition, trusting yourself but staying grounded, and being aware of potential conflict both outside and, inside your own head, and finishing with boundaries.
Okay, got it. So let's pivot now to the TarotScope for the same day, May 7th. It features the dragonfly reversed. For anyone maybe less familiar, reverse cards often point to some kind of challenge or internal aspect of the card's energy, right?
Exactly. It suggests the energy isn't flowing freely or it's manifesting in a more challenging way. And for Dragonfly Reverse, the key themes listed are illusion versus reality, clinging to outdated self-perceptions, avoidance of change, and even denial of the magic or mystery unfolding around us.
Wow, okay. So right away it's about perception of
Yeah.
what we're seeing, or maybe not seeing clearly.
And it asks this really direct question. Are we seeing things clearly? Or are we looking through a distorted lens? Maybe shaped by fear, old wounds, limiting beliefs.
That's a question anyone could ask themselves, really. Makes you pause and think, what filters am I using without even realizing it? How do those filters even get there?
Well, often it's like past stuff we haven't quite worked through, or maybe stories society tells us that we just absorbed.
Uh-huh.
It could show up as, say, a fear of failure that stops you trying, or just believing you can't do something, even if there's no real reason why not.
Right.
So the TarotScope urges us to look beyond illusion, see past those shimmering veils, reminding us that first perception is rarely the truth.
It even talks about being caught in the web of our own illusions, believing a story about ourselves that just doesn't match up with our deeper truth. That idea of self-deception is pretty intense.
It is, but there's hope in it too. It says, beneath the illusions lies something far more radiant. So the potential is there under the surface if we can just shed those false layers.
And it stresses that our view of ourselves isn't set in stone. The reflection we see is not fixed. The story we tell yourself is not absolute. That feels empowering, like we can rewrite our own script.
Yeah, definitely. And I found this bit interesting. It connects to different ways of knowing. We have the innate ability to dart between dimensions, between logic and intuition, the seen and unseen.
So it ties into using both our rational side and our gut feelings, maybe, not just relying on one.
Precisely. And the analogy it uses is quite vivid, the pool of water.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about that.
It says, like looking into a pool of water, let the surface reflections remind us how easily perception shifts, and then it suggests actively engaging. If we find yourself holding tight to old narratives, break the surface to disturb the reflection and to see what waits beneath.
Wow. So it's not just noticing the reflection, it's actively disturbing it if it feels stuck or distorted, reaching in and making ripples.
Exactly. It's an active move to challenge assumptions, to see beyond that first, maybe illusory image.
Okay, powerful stuff. Now let's bring in the third piece. Story time. The tale of the mirror pond. These stories often pack a lot of symbolism.
They really do. This one starts with Ellen, who's traveling through an ancient forest, searching for something, but she doesn't know what.
That ancient forest itself feels significant, doesn't it? Like the deep woods of the psyche or something?
Yeah, maybe the subconscious, the unknown parts of ourselves. And her nameless search really captures that inner feeling we sometimes have, that restlessness, seeking something, even if we can't name it.
Then she finds the mirror pond, which is supposed to reflect the soul's truth. But she also sees a troubled dragonfly.
Right, echoing that reversed card we just talked about. Its flight is described as uneven, its colors are dull, like it's carrying some invisible burden.
So that uneven flight, maybe it represents being thrown off balance by illusions. The dull colors, maybe a lack of vitality because of them.
Could be. And the unseen weight, perhaps the burden of those old fears and beliefs the TarotScope mentioned.
And when Ellen herself looks in the pond, she doesn't see her true self. She sees a reflection draped in old fears, worn illusions, and a cloak of beliefs handed to her by others. A mask she didn't even know she was wearing.
Such a potent image. How we can internalize things, wear these layers without even realizing it.
Then the dragonfly asks her, point blank, why do you hold on to the old reflection when your true form is ready to rise?
It's the core challenge, isn't it? Why do we cling to these limiting self-images?
And her answer is just so human. I don't know who I am without these. That fear of letting go, the fear of the unknown identity.
Totally relatable. But the dragonfly urges her on. Let the water show you. The first reflection is an illusion, and the truth lies beneath the ripple.
Directly echoing the TarotScope's advice again. Look deeper.
And then Ellen reaches into the pond, shattering that distorted image. It's such a physical metaphor for that act of consciously breaking through our own illusions.
And what she sees underneath isn't like perfection. It's authenticity. Light in her eyes and wildness in her hair, a soul both ancient and new, fierce and tender, unbound.
Yeah, it's about embracing the real, complex self, not some idealized version.
And the dragonfly transforms too, right? Becomes iridescent, flies steady.
Beautifully symbolizing that clarity, that release that comes from seeing past the illusions.
And that final message, you were never meant to stay in the chrysalis of who you were. The light is waiting. Stop denying it. Wow, that's a pretty direct call to embrace change and potential.
A really powerful encouragement.
Okay, so let's try and weave these threads together.
Hmm.
It's pretty striking how the astrology, the tarot, the story, they all seem to point in a similar direction for this particular day.
It really is. You've got the astrology talking about staying grounded.
But then the TarotScope immediately warns about illusion. So maybe true grounding, on this day at least, means getting really clear and realistic about what is, without those old distorting filters.
That makes sense. A reality check is part of being grounded.
And the astrology pushing us to break out of ruts.
Lines up perfectly with the dragonfly reversed warning against avoiding change. It feels like a nudge, maybe even a shove, towards challenging those stuck patterns. How does someone even start identifying those patterns, though?
That's a good point. Maybe it starts with just noticing. Like what thoughts keep looping, what situations feel draining or repetitive in a bad way.
Yeah, paying attention to where you feel stuck or uninspired,
Yeah.
and asking, does this way of thinking or this routine actually help me anymore?
Right, and that Virgo moon focus on details and refining things.
It is balanced by the TarotScope's reminder to look beneath the surface. Don't just polish the reflection, look at what's really underneath.
Interesting. Is it possible that sometimes focusing too much on the tiny details is actually a way to avoid looking at the bigger, maybe scarier picture?
Oh, absolutely. Getting bogged down in minutia can definitely be a way to, put off dealing with the core issue. These sources suggest real refinement needs that deeper clarity first.
And even that mention in the astrology about heated debates and strong opinions.
Could connect to the TarotScope's theme of distorted perception. Maybe it's a reminder to be aware of our own biases when things get heated, and the stories we tell ourselves about the disagreement.
Yeah. How do we navigate that better?
Well, maybe by genuinely trying to see the other side, even if we disagree, asking questions instead of just asserting, and checking our own emotional triggers, remembering our first take might be skewed by those illusions the dragonfly warns about.
And Ellen's whole journey in the story feels like such a great metaphor for, well, for your own process of learning and discovery as you listen to this.
Exactly. It shows the courage needed to face those illusions, the comfortable but limiting narratives, and embrace something more authentic.
It seems like growth, based on all this, really involves that honest look at ourselves, even if the first reflection makes us squirm a bit.
Yeah, being willing to make those ripples, like Elin did, to see what's underneath.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, the big takeaways seem to be, well, first, balancing that need to be grounded with being open to new ways of seeing things.
And second, that crucial need to question our own perceptions, to challenge beliefs that might be holding us back, maybe without us even realizing it.
And third, the potential for real, meaningful transformation that comes when we dare to look past those surface illusions.
And it's worth repeating, even if you don't literally believe in astrology or tarot as predictive, the metaphors here are incredibly rich. They offer useful ways to think about navigating life and growing as a person.
Absolutely. So I need a final thought to leave you with. What reflection in your own life right now might be ready for a ripple?
Yeah, where might a gentle disturbance, a little questioning, reveal a deeper truth that's just waiting beneath the surface?
Is there an outdated self-perception, maybe a limiting story you tell yourself, that's subtly keeping you from seeing clearly or stepping into your full potential?
Something to ponder. It really is an ongoing journey, isn't it? This whole process of learning and self-discovery.
It truly is. We hope this deep dive gave you some valuable perspectives to consider as you continue yours.